Hey guys, Kate here. Welcome back to another episode of the Wedding Planning Collective podcast. Picture this. The other day, I needed an image for a blog post, and I wanted a picture of a bride that was really stressed out while planning her wedding. Obviously, I have loads of pictures of relaxed and happy brides on their wedding day, but nothing really captured how stressful wedding planning can be. So, of course, I turned to AI. I put the prompt in that I was looking for an image of a bride that's overwhelmed and stressed out by the process of planning her wedding. And what I got back was pretty good, though it was clearly AI. It was an image of a really frazzled woman sitting at a table. She was wearing a wedding dress and a veil, and she had her head in her hands. And there were papers scattered all over in front of her with a cup of coffee that was overflowing and getting all over the papers. The most helpful part, though, the 5 sandwiches that were also scattered across the papers on the table in front of her. Who said anything about sandwiches and where did they come from? Why would AI think that the perfect addition to make this image complete would be sandwiches? We laugh at these images and videos that we see all the time on social media that are so clearly fake. Just saw one this morning of a golden retriever puppy, so cute, saving a baby from going over the edge of the waterfall. They're so obviously fake, right? But when it comes to planning your wedding, the scary thing is these AI mistakes aren't always easy to spot. There's no random sandwich or glitching bouquet in the background to warn you that this is fake or incorrect information. Instead, you get things like a perfect AI wedding timeline that doesn't give you enough time or any time to actually get dressed. A budget breakdown with the floral budget listed as $500 for a 150-person wedding. Or a list of top-rated photographers in Michigan. 2 of them don't exist. One retired in 2014, and one is actually a wildlife photographer. The hard part is most couples don't realize that something is off with this advice because, like I hear all the time, you've never planned a wedding before. This is your first go at it. Maybe there should be sandwiches on the table, right? You don't know what you don't know yet. And all this makes it really easy to trust AI because it sounds so confident and it's so helpful, even when it's confidently wrong. Don't get me wrong, I love AI. I use it all the time to plan podcast episodes, create outlines, brainstorm ideas. It is amazing when you use it correctly and you give it context. But I also see couples that use it blindly and they're trusting it with their timelines, vendor questions, and budgets. And that's where it can quietly really derail your wedding plans. So today we're going to talk about the best ways to use ChatGPT and other AI features to save you time and stress while you're planning your wedding, the things you should not be using AI for because they can cause messy and expensive mistakes, and most importantly, how you can make AI actually work for you and your wedding without losing your personality, your priorities, or control of your budget. And the best news is I have put all of this in a free AI wedding planning cheat sheet. 30 prompts to help you plan smarter, not harder. You can grab this at planningcollective.com/AI and get the download that is going to go along with this episode. To get things started, we need to talk about context because just like everything with AI, you're going to get the best results when you give it context. So before you ask AI anything, there are 2 things that you need to do first. If you've been with me for a while, they're going to sound very familiar. And that is because whether you're using AI or you're planning the old-fashioned way, you really need to know these first 2 things before you can do anything else. Number 1 is knowing what your wedding priorities are. And number 2, having that big picture number of what your wedding budget is. Because if you don't do these first 2 things, AI will happily plan your $100,000 Tuscany wedding when your budget is actually $10,000 and you're getting married in suburban Michigan. Or it's going to create you some kind of weird hybrid of all the wedding details out there that have nothing to do with what you want your wedding to be. So first, before we get into the prompts, ask yourself 3 to 5 things that matter the most to you. Is it photography, the food experience, keeping things small or big? Do you want a live band or a DJ? Sometimes it's helpful to think about what is not a priority to you. Do you not care that much about florals or the cake or favors? What are the things that you've experienced at others' weddings that you are fine skipping or that are not important to you? Those are the things we want to have outlined prior to asking ChatGPT anything. Now, when it comes to the budget, using AI tools can really help you break your budget down, but it can't tell you what you can actually spend on your wedding. Unless you give it access to your bank account or your parents' bank account, it's going to be really hard for it to give you what you can actually afford. If you missed episode 139, Are You Planning Your Wedding Backwards? Make sure you pause here, go back and listen to that, because I really go into detail about how to break down your priorities and figure out that big picture number. Once you have a handle on that, now we can move on and talk about how AI can really help you with your wedding plans. The first, and I think best category that you can use AI to help with your wedding is when it comes to anything that is based around wording or writing. Maybe that's just because I am very guilty of staring at a blank screen for hours upon hours with no idea what to say, but ChatGPT or any of the other AI programs can really help you create an outline or a structure for anything that you need help with when it comes to writing. When we're talking specifically about weddings, this could mean your invitations, your wedding website, speeches, signage, and yes, even your ceremony script and vows. It might sound like it would be a bit impersonal, but so many people get absolutely stuck when it comes to writing your vows or creating a ceremony when you sit down and do these things. I'm not saying that you should just tell ChatGPT to write my vows for me and use just that, but it can really help you get started in creating, at the very least, an outline that then you can take and make your own. Here are some prompts that I recommend you use to help you write your wedding details. First, this is our wedding ceremony script. Attach your script. Do you have any tips on the layout and suggestions for how we can make sure the ceremony lasts at least 15 minutes or whatever your time frame is? Second, I need inspiration for wedding vows. Can you help me brainstorm some personalized vow ideas based on my partner's love for adventure and travel? Of course, fill in your own blanks there. Next up, I need help writing a fun and engaging how we met story for our wedding website. Another prompt, can you suggest some invitation wording for a semi-formal beachside wedding? Or can you help me write a speech to thank our families at our wedding rehearsal dinner? And don't forget that you can also ask AI questions like, what information do you need from me to help me create my wedding vows, or to answer these prompts? The next category that I can see AI being really helpful with is finding your wedding and honeymoon inspiration. If you're in the beginning stages of planning, everything can feel so overwhelming. For some, browsing Pinterest and other image forward sites can be really helpful with gathering information and inspiration for your wedding and your honeymoon. But for others, these visual platforms just aren't as helpful. And this is where sites like ChatGPT can really come in handy and help you out. You can use these prompts to help get some of the ideas rolling. First up, what are some trending colors and palettes for 2026 weddings? What are some creative ideas for a rustic theme, including decor and venue suggestions in my area? Next up, I want to plan a bachelorette weekend in fill in the blank city, focusing on activities like wine tastings and spa days. Can you help me build an itinerary? Or our wedding is in late October and we're looking for suggestions for a beachside honeymoon. Can you recommend 5 locations within a 5-hour flight of Miami that averages 80 degrees or more in late October? And last, we have a mixed culture wedding. Can you suggest ideas on how to incorporate traditions from both culture 1 and culture 2 in a respectful and cohesive way? When it comes to using AI platforms for your budget and checklists, there are definitely pros and cons to this. And let me explain why. Just like your vows or your ceremony script, I think using ChatGPT can really help you get started. But similar to the vows, it's really important that you use that as a starting point and not rely on it 100%. I think when it comes to things like the budget and timeline, it's easier to see that as black and white as opposed to when you're using AI to write something for you and you tweak it to make it your own. We take it more as a straightforward number when it's given to us, like a budget, versus, oh, this is a good starting point with what I want to say. Let me put it in my own voice. When it comes to your budget and checklist, there are those different variables that are coming into play behind the scenes. And it seems like it's just as straightforward as a number, But really, there's a lot of different nuance that goes into it. And ChatGPT and AI aren't going to pick up on all of that. But that's why we need to talk about the priorities and that big picture number first. So let's talk about some prompts that you can use to help create a more custom or reliable answer when you're talking about budget or timeline questions. The first prompt is help me create a wedding budget for X number of guests with a total budget of X dollar amount. The next prompt could be, we're getting married in X number of months. Please create a checklist that's broken down month by month with our planning tasks. Or another prompt, how should we divide our wedding budget of $20,000 between the most important expenses? Another good prompt, what are some ways to save on our wedding costs? Or how can we create a wedding budget document to keep track of all of the expenses? In the next category, vendor questions. I don't always agree that ChatGPT is a good tool to actually find your vendors or your venue. And we're going to talk about that more in just a little bit. But I do think it can be really helpful in creating a list of questions or helping with the communication with the venue or vendors that you're chatting with. So one prompt you could use is, what questions should we be asking while touring potential wedding venues? What should we be looking for while choosing a luxury wedding venue in Italy? How can we find the best wedding photographer for our wedding, and what should we be looking for? What are some of the questions we can ask potential caterers before we hire them? And can you suggest questions that I should ask my photographer before we sign a contract? Now, one of my favorite categories for couples to use AI for is when you're looking at either brainstorming ideas like getting your hashtags or other ideas for your wedding. I think this can really be a game changer. There are so many little ways to make your wedding personal, but with all of the options, it can feel really overwhelming to narrow things down. So here are some great prompts that you can use to help personalize or customize your wedding day. Can you help us put together a music list for the reception? We love Taylor Swift, 90s music, and we do not want any line dances. Please give me 10 signature drink suggestions using champagne as the base, or whatever your preference is. Give me a few fun and punny names for our signature drinks that incorporate our dog Maisie if possible. What are some creative ways to have an eco-friendly wedding? What are some fun alternatives to the traditional guest book for guests to leave their well wishes? And what are some possible wedding hashtags we can use for our wedding? My last name is blank, and my fiance's is blank. Again, you can find more of these prompts in the guide at planningcollective.com/AI. But now I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about what I do not recommend you use AI or ChatGPT for when it comes to your wedding plans. So now that we've gone over some of the best uses for AI or ChatGPT, let's go over some of the things that I should say you want to be cautious about using it for. Your wedding day timeline and itinerary. Now, this one might be a little controversial, as I see that this is like one of the top items on lists that show like what you should use ChatGPT to plan your wedding for. Timeline is always at the top of the list. I get so nervous when I see that somebody used ChatGPT to plug in their ceremony time, their reception time, and it created our whole timeline for us. And just like we've talked about with your vows and other details, you can certainly use ChatGPT to get things started with your timeline. But the reason this doesn't make the cut is that having an accurate timeline is literally going to make or break your wedding day experience. I really can't stress that enough. There are simply too many variables that come into play for every wedding that even the best prompts can't predict. After 20 years, it is next to impossible for me to put together an accurate wedding day timeline without being able to have an actual conversation and not just the answers to a couple of questions. It's also very much a team effort, and that we need feedback from other vendors and what their logistics and details are for the day as well before we can put together this accurate timeline. In fact, working on and creating your wedding day timeline is so important that I have monthly wedding review sessions that are dedicated just to building out your wedding day timeline. It's all a part of the Planning Collective Blueprint. You can find more information at planningcollective.com/membership. The second thing I do not recommend you use AI or ChatGPT for is the budget. And yes, I am recommending and not recommending that you use AI to create your budget in the same podcast episode. Again, I do think you can get a basic structure of a wedding budget together with ChatGPT or AI, just like your timeline. But to rely on it as a solid timeline or a solid budget is just simply not realistic. Using AI to create a general starting point with your budget is great, but it will not capture the nuances and specific variables that you need to go over that are specific to your wedding. And number 3 is finding your vendors. Now, this one was a really shocking one to me. When I first started putting this list together, I assumed that finding your local vendors would be an obvious plus in the AI or ChatGPT column. But then I tested it out. And when I searched for vendors in my local area, looking specifically for Metro Detroit area photographers or local farm venues, I always get really weird results. Most of the time, the vendors that I'm given are either one, not local to my area at all. Oddly enough, most of the time I get Toronto-based vendors, which is really weird. Or 2, they're not even real vendors at all. It somehow pulls up like stock listings from template sites, and there's non-existent websites or vendors that actually correlate to them. Now, there's obviously no harm in these dead-end searches when you're looking for vendors, but I really just recommend that you save your time and stick with the sites that are built out specifically for wedding vendors, like The Knot, Wedding Wire, or Zola. These sites not only have the built-in verified review components, but it also helps you with narrowing things down with a lot more categories like budget-friendly, locations, and a lot of different variables. So what do I think is the smart way to use AI? I think it is perfect to use it for things like creating structure for your wording, brainstorming ideas, and helping with breaking down basic things like your budget and your timeline. But the real planning needs a human filter, especially someone that is familiar with weddings. And that's why I don't want you just copying and pasting random prompts that you saw trending on TikTok. I want you to use AI strategically and in a smart way, which is why I put together the AI wedding planning cheat sheet to help you get things started. Again, that guide is absolutely free. You can grab it at planningcollective.com/AI. And inside the membership, we take things even further with my wedding planning ChatGPT feature. It looks and works just the same as the ChatGPT that you are familiar with, but the answers don't come from the entire internet. All of the answers and responses that you get are pulled directly from my wedding planning blueprint course that is inside the membership. That means it's not getting its responses from random Reddit threads, but on my course content, timelines, trainings, budgeting lessons, and so many real life experiences from over 400 weddings that I've been a part of. That way you can ask things that are more specific, like what time should hair and makeup start for 6 bridesmaids and a 4 p.m. ceremony? Or how much time do we need for family photos if we're not doing a first look? Or even when are our final payments usually due? You're getting answers that you can actually trust, not from random guesses on the internet. And better yet, when you get your answers, you can click for the references and it takes you exactly to the lesson, the worksheet, or the tool within the membership that those answers come from. That way you can dig a little deeper so you know you are confident that the answer you get pertains to your actual wedding details. So if you love using AI to make things easier in your life, but you also don't want to be led completely off track when it comes to your wedding plans, this is truly the best of both worlds. You get AI and a professional wedding planner all in your back pocket. So you can start right away by grabbing the free guide over at planningcollective.com/AI. And if you're ready to join us in the membership, grab more details over at planningcollective.com/membership. All right, now I want to hear from you. Are you using AI to plan your wedding? Have you had any hilarious wins or total fails? Come share with us over in the Wedding Planning Collective Facebook group. I'm sure we're going to hear some hilarious stories. If this episode was helpful, I would love it if you could take a quick second to rate, review, or share with a friend. It helps more couples find the wedding planning help they need. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next episode.